stop right now at the battle line. I told that to President Zelenskyy. I told it to President Putin. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, did want to bring you that minute-long statement there from President Trump as he was boarding Air Force One, not taking questions there. But, of course, there was that news conference we brought you earlier on in the day with President Trump and Zelenskyy, and then Zelenskyy spoke on his own. So we'll bring that to you later on this morning. Again, we are taking a live look at this hour over the White House in D.C. as we continue to cover this from each and every angle. Mark Chandler is the Director of Government Relations and Professor of Practice at Coastal Carolina University, also a former senior defense intelligence official. Mark, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
You're welcome, Josh. Good morning, and thanks for having me on to talk about this subject.
Good morning. Well, first off, can you start by kind of explaining the takeaways that exist from that meeting between President Trump and Zelenskyy? Of course, we were not in the room, but we are getting a lot of information from both Trump and Zelenskyy about what went on behind closed doors.
Well, Josh, I think we can characterize the meeting itself and then the takeaways from this as kind of subdued optimism. And I say that because I think a lot of people were prepared to see some major announcement come from this and say the U.S. is going to provide Tomahawk missiles to the Ukrainians. I honestly don't believe that the Tomahawks were really a sincere offer that was on the table just due to the nature of the weapon system itself and where we are in the talks. So I think both sides remain positive. But at this stage, trying to negotiate and jockey for position ahead of these upcoming talks, I think that you can kind of say, okay, subdued optimism, we're moving forward. We still have a strong partnership, but it seems a little bit of hesitancy on the part of the U.S. not to offend Putin at this stage, trying to draw him in, even though he has proven time and again to be duplicitous in his actions. So I say, let's see what's going to happen over the next 2 weeks. No damage was done to the relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine at this time. So let's just move forward in a positive direction.
How significant would it have been if those Tomahawks were provided? I have to imagine, kind of as you said there, that could cause some issues between Presidents Trump and Putin because they've agreed to meet over in Budapest, Hungary here. Trump saying that's likely to happen, quote unquote, within 2 weeks or so. My question is, how could that have all impacted the whole situation there?
Well, the Tomahawk concerns Russia primarily because of its range, its accuracy, and its ability to strike deep inside Russia. So that, I don't want to use the term escalation in certain contexts. It's a better weapon system to give the Ukrainians what they need to strike offensively deeper into Russia. Now let me just add this about the Tomahawk weapon system itself. It is a complicated weapon system. It's very accurate. It has a long range. Probably looking at about the 1,000-mile range system that would be given to the Ukrainians if that happens. We do have a much longer range version of that. But when you look at the weapon system itself, the intelligence required to go into targeting something, some of the mapping systems that go into that system. So you look at this, it's not a fire and forget system. It's not something we're going to give the Ukraine today and then start launching tomorrow. It will take significant U.S. training support to make this weapon system work for what the Ukrainians need. But what it does give the Ukrainians, or what would happen, is the ability to strike deep targets to include Moscow, if you want to get dramatic about it, although I don't think that's a primary target, but military command and control facilities, some of the air bases that Russia uses to launch these drones and launch air attacks, missile sites, so they can strike much deeper into Russia to kind of push back on what's going to happen. But more importantly, and probably what a lot of people don't realize, is Ukraine has been going after the oil and gas infrastructure. That's Russia's primary economic generator right now. And so Ukraine needs to be more effective, and to do that, strike some of those oil and gas energy infrastructure targets that are deeper inside Russia. That's going to bring some pain. Yes, the military targets will obviously help Ukraine militarily, but you have to go after the economic aspects of what's fueling this war that Russia's brought on to Ukraine. the Tomahawks would allow Ukraine to hit more of those targets and be more effective.
Is there any real possibility of seeing Presidents Trump, Putin, and Zelenskyy actually meet in the same room? Because it even sounds as though President Trump was saying there's quote unquote bad blood between the two, Putin and Zelenskyy, no question there, but that it doesn't seem very likely now.
Well, I think when you try to put the three of them in a room together, Putin is going to push back. He does not consider Zelenskyy an equal to him. Even though Putin initiated this war, I have to do a little pushback on the president in that I don't think they are equally to blame. Putin started this war. Putin's the aggressor. Putin continues to just push his people through a meat grinder, if you will, out there. But I don't think that Putin's going to lower himself, if you will, to be in the same room. I mean, it would be a major accomplishment if that were to happen. Could they be in the same city? Could they all be in the same building? Yeah, there's a chance. And you could see a mediator going back and forth, room to room. But I don't know that you'll get the face-to-face meeting. That would be a significant acquiescence from Putin if that were to happen.
And one thing that's interesting, you mentioned mediator, and we heard from President Trump during one of the news conferences yesterday that he's, quote unquote, the mediator president, as he has mediated a lot of different wars. That includes the situation taking place right now. You and I have discussed a lot about the Gaza war. That ceasefire, fragile, but still in effect at this point. We also have the potential for the Russia-Ukraine peace deal to be in effect as well. If those are negotiated, what will that do to President Trump's legacy, his standing there as a president, not just now, but in the future?
Well, I think, Josh, you have to look at this holistically, and you're right about the Gaza deal. While it's not complete, this is a major accomplishment. I don't want to take anything away with the fact that we haven't gotten through the other phases of that negotiation, but this is a major accomplishment that I think if you look throughout history, any administration would be happy to put this feather in their cap as an accomplishment in 4 years, not just 10 months that the president has. But let's go back. I think what you're seeing is a personal desire, a drive, part of his psychological makeup that is President Trump, that he abhors war. He abhors this conflict and the tragedy that comes with it. And so, I mean, that goes back to his first administration. But when you look at his single-minded effort, I mean, I know he can be a polarizing figure domestically and internationally. You know, sometimes people either hate or love him on that situation, but you cannot take away from the fact of what he has solved. If we look at this year, India, Pakistan back in May, the big concern if a war starts there, and you had fighting escalate real quickly, is this could lead quickly to a nuclear war on the Asian subcontinent. And he went in and through force of personality and U.S. strength kind of stopped that war. But then you look at the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. That's been going on for decades, and that fighting escalated. He stopped that back in June. And then Israel, Iran. And here he used judicious military, U.S. military force, and he stopped something that for decades we have been saying that if Israel and Iran go to war, this is going to escalate and bring the entire Middle East down. It stopped. And then finally, Armenia and Azerbaijan, another decades-long fighting. Those are 4 or 5 major accomplishments to stop bloodshed, to stop war. And I think, you know, you look at how President Trump approaches this, you have to give him that respect and do. I mean, in the public stage, do it. Forget the Nobel Peace Prize. I know that's what a lot of people talk about, but as an accomplishment in an administration in just 10 months, phenomenal accomplishments here.
And we heard from President Trump, he said it multiple times, that's not why he's doing it. He says he doesn't really care about the Nobel Peace Prize. He says it would be nice, but that, and I don't want to mix up, so I'm going to kind of paraphrase here, but he essentially said he loves the idea of stopping wars. All right, my last question here before I let you go, I want to ask you, what should we be watching for here as we see Presidents Trump and Putin meet there in Budapest, Hungary in the coming weeks?
Well, you're going to, over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see a lot of public posturing. So I think let's go back a little bit in time and look at the Alaska summit. Putin came in there. He was very gregarious. He talked about how he was ready for peace. Let's go to peace. And soon after that, some of the most devastating Russian attacks since the beginning of the war, he leveled on Ukraine, and he hasn't let up. Now, so I think what you're going to see is we have to watch for what Russia does militarily leading up over the next couple of weeks. And then I think you need to see how the West kind of stakes out its positions as we move forward. Russia says they're open to peace. Russia wants certain things from this, but there's no real pressure on Russia right now. So what is the West? What is the U.S. willing to start to apply both public and private pressure as you go out there? There's a lot of things that can happen to make Russia feel pain. India's helping now with starting to reduce its oil imports, but we haven't even gone after the Russian ghost oil fleet. So is that going to be put on the table? Are sanctions going to be made to put on the table? Something I talk about in my Castle newsletter that I publish monthly is if I look at this, Russia is going to have to be made to feel pain, both economically, and then there's got to be security guarantees that shows Russia cannot continue this aggression. So how does the West start to posture those positions publicly? And we'll see, because Russia is going to continue to lie diplomatically. They're going to continue to lie publicly as they position. So we'll see how that goes. If there's positive outcome from the senior level talks that are supposed to occur next week, I think we're on a positive glide slope, although I still will not trust Putin. We're on a positive glide slope to some public meetings with Trump, Putin, and possibly Zelenskyy here in Budapest.
All right, Mark Chandler, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and breaking it all down. As I mentioned here, we always talk pretty much 98% of the time that I have you on about the Gaza war. And I know you've written a book, so I do want to give you a chance to plug that book because, you might mention me in it.
Hey, Josh, thanks a lot for the opportunity. It's the Israel-Hamas war, making the complex comprehensible. And I will say this book wouldn't be possible without you at all, Josh. That unfortunate phone call that you gave me the night of October 7th, 2023, and the opportunity you gave me to talk about this tragic war kind of led to a relationship that we've had. You're the foundation of the book. You're the foundation that brought the questions out that allowed me to explain it. And I think that's what I try to do throughout the book. With your help, I greatly appreciate it. So thanks for the opportunity to throw a plug in there.
Well, and I was going to say, I didn't even pay you to say all those nice things. So thank you so much, Mark Chandler, as always, for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Josh, thanks a lot. Anytime you need me, I appreciate it.
And I do want to take you out to this post here via Truth Social from President Donald Trump, all related to his conversation there with Zelenskyy. He says the meeting with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy of Ukraine was very interesting and cordial, but I told him, as I likewise strongly suggested to President Putin, that it is time to stop the killing and make a deal. Enough blood has been shed, with property lines being defined by war and guts. They should stop where they are. Let both claim victory. Let history decide. No more shooting, no more death, no more vast and unsustainable sums of money spent. This is a war that would have never started if I were president. Thousands of people being slaughtered each and every week. No more. Go home to your families in peace. Now, again, that is a post there from Truth Social by President Donald Trump. We also heard from Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine. He said, I met with the heads of American think tanks. We discussed the battlefield and the steps that can bring us closer to a guaranteed peace. Many think tank representatives are already working with our people and our military to find effective solutions. We appreciate this and count on continued support. Thank you for a meaningful discussion and insightful ideas. I'm grateful for the sincere support for Ukraine and our people. That, again, a post there from Volodymyr Zelenskyy as he was meeting with many different people while here in the U.S. We are going to hear his comments that he made after the meeting coming up a little bit later on in the hour. But for now, I do want to head to a quick 2-minute commercial break. A lot more live coverage coming up here in just a few. Stay with us here on Live Now from